Back at closing trades right here on ET now. The Nifty's recovered quite a bit actually, I must say, from almost breaking into the red to 27. We are living by the hour, but it just underlines the point that we are trying to make, that the chart should tell you. It underlines the point we're making, that please trade with stop losses, though even they will get hit, but at least the losses will be minimized, because right now it's just extremely choppy out there. As we speak, Interglobe Aviation is sub 800, and I think the lowest level that I've seen in that stock for a while now. I think it's a fresh 52-week trading low for since listing, whatever, for Interglobe. Jet Airways at 522 is cracked. SpiceJet is cracked, so that is not looking that strong. We've already spoken about what pharma is up to. Big, large, small pharma is all cracking in trade. HCL Info is down. And I think ADAC group stocks are cracking in trade. So Reliance Power is down 2. Reliance Infra, more importantly, is down 7.5%. So that's not... Reliance Capital is down about 5% as well. And today, the strong bastion of sorts, I think some of the sugar names, etc., Tata Elxsi, all are giving way. So it's just looking a bit shaky, more so on the broader markets than on those large caps. And that's the big question. Before we get the chart of the day, let's get in a couple of fundamental thoughts out here. Sandeep Sabharwal joins in, as does Mayuresh Joshi. Chairman, good afternoon. Thanks for joining in. Sandeep, a reasonably good day, ably supported by the global markets because they are not doing all that badly, it's just turning a bit wobbly. Just underlines the kind of pressure that we are in, more so also because, Sandeep, the last 2 or 3 sessions, we've now started seeing consistent DI selling as well. Could that be one reason why now the broader market is looking a lot more shakier?
I think short-term picture is getting impacted by the short-term flows.
Yes.
Like you said, that domestic market participants are also selling. But I think that aside, I think the biggest move, as far as I'm concerned, over the last couple of days is the way the dollar index has given away. And I think that's the biggest thing which market participants should be looking at today. Because that creates a whole new paradigm where it was the most crowded trade. And as US dollar declines, we'll see other emerging market currencies and all other currencies come back. And the flows into risky assets should start from here on. So that doesn't mean it happens today. So it's not happening today. So today the market's determined by today's fund flow. But the directional flows are likely to improve going forward. And that will lead to the market stabilizing and ultimately moving up.
Mayuresh, the wobbly pack today has been pharma, underlined by the weakness right now in Wockhardt, underlined by the weakness in Lupin and a few other stocks all through the trading day today. What gives here? Because a lot of these stocks are now trading at fresh lows for themselves, fresh 52-week lows, I mean.
Afternoon, Neeraj. I think clearly one needs to really understand how the earnings of the pharma companies have been over the past so many quarters. And again, I think on a historical comparison, the valuation is a little bit too stretched in terms of expectations laid out for the next 4 quarters. So clearly, I think you're talking about how the earnings are expected to pan out vis-a-vis the kind of valuations that these companies are deriving. So clearly, I think a stock-specific approach is something that should be ideally followed within the space itself. Secondly, I think a lot of FDA concerns probably concerning the industry overall at this point of time, and you're not really sure on what which pharma company is next. So in that sense itself, probably I think a lot of news was getting played out since morning in terms of the API ban and so on and so forth. So clearly, I think the pharma stocks are taking a beating, both in terms of how valuations are probably panning out for the larger sector as a whole. But clearly, I think my take is that a stock-specific approach is something that I will follow, specifically looking forward for FY17 numbers.
Fair enough. Sandeep Sabharwal, we'll come to you on this one. Sundaram Fasteners, I don't know whether you track this story, but their numbers looked okay. They are looking at expanding their export base and contribution to revenues going forward. In fact, the management said that it'd be 50-50 by about 5 years from now. Did you take a look at the numbers? Do you track the stock?
No, I don't track that.
Mayuresh, Sundaram Fasteners?
Unfortunately, even I don't track the stock.
Okay, but aviation, that is one space which is cracking. Jet Airways is down 6%. The entire sector has been under some pressure. SpiceJet now down about 8.5%. Sandeep Sabharwal, and I'll start off with you on this one. Do you see this as just a reversal of the overbought positions in the sector that we saw towards the latter part of 2015, or are people really giving up on the sector fundamentally?
I think that's the problem facing the markets today, because by the end of 2015, a lot of the sectors were not performing. and people just loaded on to particular sectors, and aviation was one of them, and sugar was the other. So I think the sugar story still is live and ongoing. But I think Indigo, Interglobe Aviation, it was overpriced even at the IPO price. So it went up to 1400. I think most of our retail investors got trapped, and that's something which is also again sentiment, impacting the sentiments in the markets. So I don't see value in aviation stocks even now. I think directionally, time-wise, we'll see some correction. And the next time to look at these stocks maybe in March, April, when we are at the start of the holiday season, and that's the time maybe they'll offer some value.
Now the interesting thing is though that the correction in aviation is happening. A lot of people said that the correction will happen when crude starts inching up substantially. It's not that crude has definitely moved up in trade. Sure, Brent may be at 35, so on and so forth, but it's not at 50, it's not a definitive trend, and already we're seeing the signs of a shakeout. I mean, forget Interglobe. You might argue that Interglobe had a very bad con call, maybe a few other things haven't gone right for them, but the others too are cracking. So it didn't take crude to really lead to this bit of a correction, or quite a bit of a correction in Interglobe or a Jet Airways for that matter. Just keep that at the back of your mind. But the chart of the day, we need to first talk about that. CK Narayan, what is the chart of the day today?
Chart of the day is Hindustan Liver. I think I'm trying to find island in the sea where people can seek to hide, and Hindustan Liver seems to be offering some such opportunity. It is trading today at about 835, has actually remained pretty steady, and in and through this let's say last hour carnage that we have now kind of getting to be a habit over the last few sessions. So I think more people will flock to this as they seek refuge from a declining market, may help to push the stock to about 850, 860. So I would remain a buyer in this, not really expecting too much, but right now we need some safe harbors, and I think Liver is providing one.
Well, maybe so. 834 currently for Lever. By the way, a pertinent point, just bring up the rupee versus the dollar. Remember, we started off well, yes, but I think there has been a substantial last 30-minute appreciation that we've had. 0.5% now, over 0.5% gains for the rupee, 67.71. And remember, overnight, I think the dollar collapsed against a whole host of asset classes, gold, commodities as well. And it probably showed in the way it's happened with the currencies as well, which is why the rupees gained quite substantially in the last 15-20 minutes of trade. So maybe a further depreciation of the USD has happened. So good going there. Sandeep, you want to come in here? Because I believe this is a factor of what happened overnight in the dollar trade vis-a-vis some of the other asset classes as well.
I think this is one of the most major factors which people should track. See, finally, if you look at the markets this year, the markets have fallen not because of what happened in India, right? It started off with the yuan depreciation, then it went to the crude fall. Now, yuan has stopped depreciating. In fact, today the yuan fixing was 0.16% stronger. Then we have crude has rebounded. And I think the most important factor is the currency factor. Today also the dollar index has fallen around 0.5%, and what we are seeing is that this was the most crowded trade. It's getting unwound, and as it gets unwound, we'll see money flow start into emerging markets again, and that's what investors should be looking at now.
Okay, Sahil, understand we have to let you go, but before we do that, any thoughts on the liquid universe? So I'll include aviation out there, and I'll probably include the ADAG group stocks. So those are 6 or 7 stocks which are looking wobbly, even though the market has recovered a bit of lost ground.
I think both these spaces do not offer any significant trades on the upside in the short term. I think both these spaces are going to see further pain going forward. We are generally recommending not to add any of these stocks in the short term. Only pocket of strength that can come in is in Reliance Infra. I think another 5 to 7% correction from here would give you a pop off of about 7 to 8% in terms of short term trading. Apart from that, I think there is significantly no uptick trades which are available in this space.
Fair call. We'll leave it at that. Sahil, much appreciate you taking the time out and joining us today. Thanks for giving us your thoughts. By the way, as we've been saying, just revisiting, I think the global markets seem to be doing okay. The Dow futures are also in the green. and oil prices have extended the gains. Marginally higher in trade is crude as well. I think it's because of crude that what Kane and Vedanta are doing in the session today. 8.5% for Vedanta. Kane is up about 6%, and those are the top two gainers on the Nifty 100. And then they are followed by what's happening to a Motherson Sumi, NMDC, and a few others. So the dollar fall has led to commodity names by and large just doing very, very well in trade. Be it a Vedanta, be it a Kane, be it NMDC. As we speak, the index is back above 7,400, and that just shows again. I'm repeating myself, but I'm just underlining the volatility that exists in the market currently. We were up about 1%. We were within kissing distance of breaking into the red, and now we are back up 43 odd points. I think people initiating day trades would be getting whipsawed by virtue of the kind of volatility that we're seeing right now. Having said that, CK Narayan, come in on the kind of trades that somebody can initiate if he wants to on the commodity pack, because that is one that is seemingly taking heart from this dollar movement that has happened over the last 12 hours.
Yeah, I think, one of the things, whether it is commodity pack or banking pack or whichever, my sense is that the problem in the market right now is two. One is absence of, let's say, buyers. And second is a great deal of uncertainty among the few buyers and sellers who are existing. I think both these do not make for a good trading scenario except for very, very professional and very rule-based kind of traders. So whether it's a commodity pack, I think they're all getting smashed. I would think that, the way the dollar moved last night, we have not seen the end of it. That's probably a beginning of the dollar weakness. So my sense is that the commodity pack should definitely get or see more of an impact while we move ahead in further days.
Desh, that's actually a similar question to you. The trade in the commodity pack, I would repeat this to our viewers that even if you're taking the trades as advised by our experts, please stick to the stop losses very, very carefully, because it's just a very, very tricky market to trade right now. Having said that, Mitesh, the commodity pack, be it Vedanta, be it the steel companies, be it Can, all of them are holding out. Is there a trade here?
Neeraj, I think, again, these stocks have been extremely oversold, beaten down for last few days, now trying to reverse. The one which, really appeals to me and possibly could be a good trade in the short term would be Vedanta Limited. I think that's one stock which is coming back from just a lower bottom and giving strong divergence signals. I can be bought with a stop below 66. I would look at 72, 72.5 as the first target, though I suspect if those levels are crossed, I think we are even looking at 77 as the target on the upside. The other ones, I think, I do like Kane, but it needs to get past the recent swing highs of about 125, 126, and once it crosses that, then I think, you're looking at a slightly stronger rally develop over here, which could head to about levels of 131 to about 133.
Okay, just quickly get in Ramdev Agarwal's opinion as well. He speaks about his views on the markets and his top sectoral bets.
One should not bother too much about what FI does, because even DI can buy big time. We have seen last year for equal amount of selling by FIs, DIs came and bought all the way. So I think at current market prices, what people are looking, what I'm getting to see among my clients is that they are looking for stability of the market, and tons of money is waiting to come into the market. The market has to bottom out to say that bottom was 7,200 or 7,300. Once that confidence comes, I think we are going to see some serious inflow from DI side, at least from the domestic HNIs. The pain in the banking stocks might be, this is the worst probably we might be going through. Nothing, because most of the banks are not in the equity values now. These are all option values. We have remained very focused on to buying one or two so-called, good banks, in the sense that the banks which have not got into, this stress asset game, the corporate loan book game. At this point of time, the companies which are showing up, they are doing good business, they have tailwind on the back of it, or they have created that tailwind because of their differentiation. Those are companies to look at. Now the top quality companies are not only declaring good results, but even the market has been very kind to their preserving their market caps at this point of time.
it might be time to buy quality, and you probably should do that always. But from a trading perspective, I think the commodity names or the metal names are really packing a punch, and this has got to do with the kind of dollar weakness that we've seen over the last 12 hours. Vedanta is now up 12%. It's a really strong move there. The other 2 or 3 names that stand out, one of them is ABB, which is now trading at 14% higher. So good move for that one as well. That's inched higher. And the one that has come off completely after its results is Kaveri Seeds. Now a very liquid name by virtue of what happened, the howler that it came out with the last quarter. Another 4.5% downtick coming in at 334 for Kaveri Seeds. So that's that week one. The 52-week low is 300. But these quarter numbers are extremely poor. Before we get into a fundamental perspective there, I think our research team members have been waiting by patiently. So let's just first get in what dealing rooms are recommending in the session today. Extremely choppy day of trade. However, what are you picking up from your sources? Darshan, let's start off with you.
See, basically, it's just result trades that are going on in the market. Overall, there is so much volatility that investment or positional trades are not something that are seeing any kind of high accumulation or anything. So, 2 numbers in the near term. One of them is Bharat Forge, which will come out with numbers on the 9th. The buzzword in the dealing room is the fact that Bharat Forge will report weak set of numbers on all 3 parameters. Similar is the buzzword on Lupin also. Lupin will come out with numbers tomorrow, and the dealing room chatter is Lupin will really disappoint as far as the numbers are concerned. So these 2 reaction coming in on the basis of numbers. And on the long side, Adani Ports is something that a couple of dealing rooms did indicate that some of the HNIs have started accumulating this counter.
Thanks a lot for that, Darshan. Ajay, a really good call by our dealing room sources on Motherson in the morning. What are they speaking about right now?
Well, Neeraj, again, 2 stocks which are trading weak right now, but going forward in the next 1 to 2 days, in fact, by tomorrow, dealers expect Cipla is 1 stock which is trading weak right now, good 2% lower. But the numbers would be coming out on Tuesday. Dealers, in fact, are recommending their clients to start building their positions this quarter. Could be a good one for Cipla. So watch out for that one for a recovery trade. Reliance Industries is also a BTST trade which is being recommended, again trading at days low right now. Dealers believe that it is possibly risk reward ratio is positive as far as Reliance goes right now, and global situation is not collapsing. In fact, it is stabilizing. So that's why they are venturing out and recommending BTST trades. And the last one is JSW Steel. The stock is already doing well, and there is expected some government steps to for kind of a protectionist measure. It could be some kind of a safeguard duty for the steel sector could be announced. So there is also hope trade being BTST one being recommended in JSW.
Thanks for that, Ajay. Just before we get in closing strategies, I also want to mark what's happened to the currency. Sandeep Sivalwal rightly says, well, let's just bring up the bond markets as well and see if there has been a bit of an uptick there. Remember, all that's happening in the commodity pack is closely related to what's happening to the dollar, and that's why the rupee strengthened a bit. And I reckon the bond yields should bring up the bond prices and the bond yields as well. Maybe 7.83. Okay. So no, not too much. That's been okay. Not really a big move, but maybe in a couple of hours or maybe an hour and a half, you probably see some more. Nevertheless, 67.70. So the rupee continues to strengthen, which is actually a good sign. But time for a little bit of easing. Remember, just a little bit of easing, not too much. But time for our closing strategies, and then we talk about some fundamental ideas as well with Mayuresh and Sandeep Sabharwal. But Mitesh Thakkar, your top closing strategy.
I would stick to Vedanta Limited. Neeraj, buy with a stop at 66 for target of around 72.5.
Alright, your strategies? Dr. Narayan, your strategy at 320?
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, Dr. Narayan. Your strategy at 320?
I would short a century at 480, stop loss 488, looking for a target at 467, and I would also have a BTST long on Just Dial at about 555, stop loss at 545, and looking for a target at 575.
Wow, Just Dial futures. Remember, he's not talking about the Just Dial spot right now at 583, but Just Dial futures. There's a big difference there. Sikinara is going long on Just Dial futures at 557, the target of 575. After eons, I think somebody's given a buy call on Just Dial, which is good to know. But I want to talk about the more active stocks. And today. And Mayuresh, Joshi, do you have a view on Kaveri Seeds? Do you track that? Mayuresh, do you track Kaveri Seeds? No, I don't think Mayuresh can hear me. Sandeep Sabrawal, what about you? Do you track Kaveri Seeds at all?
Yeah, Kaveri Seeds is a company where I think it has a lot of issues, and I think the basic issues are related to the way the accounting is done. And that accounting led to the company reflecting profits which were much higher than what actually should have been.
And now it's unraveling, right? These quarters numbers as well, Sandeep, 9 crores versus whatever 35 odd crores was very, very shoddy.
Yeah, so I think that entire profitability thing is unraveling. So I think profitability in the business was not so great in any case. The other thing which still has to unravel is that they don't pay taxes and they treat their income as farm income, whereas they actually do contractual farming where the farmer also takes the benefit of agriculture income. So this by itself is a debatable thing whether they can take that advantage or not. So I would say for any long-term investor, this stock is avoid.
Ahead of the numbers, I heard both my researchers speak about the top 2 Capgood names, Motherson Sumi and Bharat Forge. Mayuresh, Joshi, if you can hear me, any thoughts here? Motherson is active ahead of its numbers on Monday.
No, clearly, Neeraj, I think both these stocks have gone through their pain points, and if you remember the concerns related to Volkswagen, I think one really needs more clarity on that in terms of how the volume expectations are getting laid out by the management. For Bharat Forge specifically, I think the Class 8 trucks, you've seen still in a degrowth, probably on a month-on-month numbers even now. So clearly, I think one needs to have clarity from the management on both these numbers. So a very difficult call to take fundamentally unless we understand how the patterns are going to pan out and what kind of earnings estimate the management probably has over the next fiscal.
The CNX mid-cap index has broken into the green as well now. So and the Nifty is trading at the high point of the last 1 hour, 7413. And clearly a remarkable recovery from the pain point that we were having. We just nudged the red mark or almost there, break-even point before moving up 50 points from those levels. So this last 1 hour has seen a V-shaped recovery for the second half, so to say. So really good going there. Cummins is up 6.5 too, but it's clearly the commodity names which are really revving up in trade. Sandeep, from a trading perspective, yes, but I reckon it's too soon to actually call an investment case in any of the metal names, I would reckon.
Yeah, no long-term investor is going to buy the metal names today.
Right.
I think they'll wait for much more stability. They'll wait for maybe prices to settle higher and wait for some demand revival. So I think that's the reason why you see so much volatility and so fast price movements here, because long-term investors are just not there. And this is a trader's delight, sort of. So where it's just the traders which move these stocks these days.
That is true, and that you can see on your screens. Look at that big bump up on Vedanta. That just completely defies the way some of the other large caps have moved in the session today. This chart squarely dominates trade in terms of the impression it leaves in the session. But we are back above 7,400. I just want to bring up transformers and rectifiers because they won about 150 crore order from Power Grid. Power Grid, incidentally, is also holding up about 3%, but I don't know whether that order win has led to transformers and rectifiers to spike in the session. There was a bit, but not so much, so about 1% higher, closer to 260 on that stock. But it's good to see how small orders are mobilizing within the industry as of now.
And I have your favorite stock, the intraday, which I want to point out now. Tanvi, any guesses? Reliance Industries, the intraday should come up on your screen. Just bring up the intraday. I think with the market move upward as well, I think Reliance is just having that little bit of the last 10-15 minutes movement in Reliance has been very, very interesting. It's just gone down and recovering, trying to recover a wee little bit. 975 currently for a Reliance Industries.
It's not my favorite stock. It's a stock that we track, given that it's a large index heavyweight. It's a stock where we've tracked the price action for a really long time, and it's not done a whole lot, so that's why it stands out.
It hasn't. But ahead of the numbers tomorrow, Tata Power is active too, 4% higher. So as is customary, just before we start trapping the markets, a word on the top movers in the markets. We've discussed Vedanta and Kane, so I'll discuss Tata Power. Mitesh, any thoughts here? Up 4% ahead of close.
Again, I think looks like some kind of a bounce back from oversold levels. I don't think it'll manage to get past levels of 64, 65. So maybe a trading rally can happen over there. I'm not sure. I think maybe once it crosses 65, you might want to look into the stock.
Sikinara, Pharma has been weak today. And while we've discussed Wokhar and the others, what about Lupin? That's the second top loser on the Nifty. What do you do here?
I think at about 1655, where it is trading on the futures, it's sort of in a bit of a gray area in the sense that it is under threat of falling further. You just come down to the level of supports at this level. Tomorrow, if there's a follow through to the downside that is below 1650 on the futures, I think I would want to go short. But there is a chance that if the market survives, the stock could also survive. So I think it's a wait and watch on Lupin. It's not a straight off trade like perhaps Wokhard was or Aurobindo Pharma is. So we'll have to wait and watch and see which way to jump tomorrow.
Okay, fair enough. That'll be post earnings. But gentlemen, let's start winding up the market. You're looking at the Nifty on balance close above 7,400 in the session. Vedanta is squarely the stock in focus, 11% up on Vedanta in trade. That's above 6860. Again, has done well for itself. Tata Power has performed. Hindalco is a high of about 3.5%. So it's really a bounce back in metals. And as Sandeep Sabharwal highlighted, there seems to be a trader's sort of rally that one is taking heart from. Speculators being more active in the session than taking pure fundamental and structural calls here. Adani Port higher by about 3%. Power Grid, we spoke about that one. That one is higher by about 2.5-3%. L&T, Asian Paints, Tata Motors, these are stocks which have held out. Some of the banking names have also positioned themselves well. On to the losers, and Idea Cellular, Lupin are a bit weaker. Yes Bank is down by about 2%. Cipla is also a bit weaker. NTPC and of course the entertainment, those are some of the laggards in trade. But the market is split down the middle. The bias, one would believe, is on the positive, but it's too early to say.
Yeah, and by the way, I just want to mark now nations are coming in and supporting some key commodities on your screen. Agencies are saying this, that China is going to ban new capacity of steel. I mean, let me not get mistaken that this is India. We're not talking about India. China is going to ban new capacity of steel. All steel stocks are rallying, I believe. They're going to cut the steel capacity by up to 150 million tons over 5 years. This is coming on the agencies, mind you, so it's not confirmed by ET now, but agencies are reporting that China will do this. This is very interesting, and after we shut the market, we'll just come back and revisit this because this will have an impact on steel. And in the morning, we've heard those media reports about how rubber exports will also be, tackled by some of the rubber growing nations as well. So that this is an effort, a concerted effort, so to say, to ensure that amongst the largest products get a bit of a shoring. But I mean, I actually not want to talk too much about capacity. This. Maybe that also. So So you have a valid point there. China is a big consumer too of steel. So,
and they're sitting on a lot of excess capacity when it comes to steel manufacturers. The only problem there is, and as we close the market, is that they are banning. So they're in a way imposing they're interfering with the sector and its dynamics within the local market, which China is known to do. So they are interfering with the industry dynamics, and they're to cut crude steel capacity by up to 150 million tons in 5 years. That's what Neeraj was highlighting. But this is expected of China, pretty much stepping into the market to take control.
Yeah, Sandeep Sabharwal, interesting.
Yeah, I think 150 million ton thing was there, but new capacity is being banned. This is something new which I've heard. And ultimately, I think there's too much excess capacity there. I think 150 million tons going out will make ultimately a decent impact on the overall steel market globally. But it will still take time. I think 40-50 million, which might go in the first year, might not impact so much. But at least the prices drop falling, and that's more important.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that it's happening across commodities now. Better late than never. Well, it's happened for the last 6 months now. But it's just coincidental that today we've had 2 or 3 news reports about this. In the morning, some media reports about rubber exports. Now, China doing this to steel as well, which obviously will have a bit of an impact, or at least sentimentally, if not fundamentally, on steel prices as well. I think, unless I'm very wrong, steel stocks across are rallying right now.
Yeah, must be, because I think it's steel, metal, all stocks are rallying today.
Yeah.
And given the directional move in the dollar index, again we come back to that. I think the metal rally could have some more way to go.
Yeah, and which is what I think is probably the key for the next couple of days. That this would probably happen, because yesterday if you see, it was not as much about just a pure play uptick in crude as it was about the dollar just coming off against a host of asset classes as well, which is why today morning we saw really sharp appreciation in the rupee vis-a-vis the dollar as well. So just keep that in mind. And CK Narayan, you track these very, very closely, I reckon. What is your call here? The kind of fall that the dollar index has taken and the kind of uptick that the commodity legs have gotten as well, can this last for a bit longer? Both you and Mitesh have a consensus long call on the metal names today.
Yeah, I think, see, I just mentioned it a little while ago that the fall in the dollar index that we saw as of last night, I think that's just a kind of a beginning of at least a short to medium term might be a little longish, but at least a multi-week kind of weakening on the dollar charts. Now, this has to impact favorably any commodity which is priced in dollars. So that is why you saw this big spike up in crude. You will now see it in the other commodities. I think they go hand in hand after all because they're all priced in dollars. So I think the dollar weakness is set to stage. You are seeing a big peel off in the INR, for example. It opened the morning at about the futures at least at about 68.13 and it's currently trading at 67.90. I think that's a telling clue. I think all the dollar denominated items are going to have a rally. They were all deeply oversold anyway. So shorts are going to scramble to cover. Longs who are going to bottom fish are going to come in. I think there's going to be a small minor party over there for at least a few days.
So it seems, I just want to read these flashes out again, Neeraj. So China, the flashes that we have as of now is China is to ban new capacity of steel. It's to cut crude steel capacity by up to 150 million tons in 5 years. That's a long-term plan. China is to step up financial support for steel overcapacity cut. That means they will help companies, with managing their costs. And they are to encourage steel companies, M&A, to help cut overcapacity. So if you don't invest more to build up capacity, which is either ways in excess, the ailing industries, there could be a lot of intra-industry M&A that can help in sharing capacities. The only thing is, from an India perspective, the risk of dumping of steel products, that gets alleviated because that's a big boost. Then that comes in for the domestic steel sector, which is why the stocks were rallying. And also all that talk of Sandeep Sabharwal about, the minimum import price, that, the threat of China as far as, their excess steel capacity finding its way into India, that also kind of steps back a bit. So, that MIP worry also kind of, eases off a bit for our sector too. So these are all pluses for the Indian steel sector.
And I think, in commodity industries, what happens is that till the price is falling, the users also don't stock because they feel that tomorrow you'll get the price, you'll get it cheaper. So if the belief is that price has bottomed and the price will move up, then that stocking itself takes up the price. And I think that's something which could happen because of this. The other thing which is more important is that when we heard the monetary policy speech of the RBI governor, I think he stressed a lot on the steel sector. But steel is something where we don't see revival. Steel is something which is paining the Indian banking sector, etc. So if steel sees a revival, that could contribute positively to the Indian banking sector also indirectly. And that's something which we'll also need to watch.
Yeah, well, steel imports in India up to December had climbed to 9.4 lakh tons, which was up 29% YOY. Keep that in mind. Mayuresh, Joshi, your thoughts on this? I think the market recovery is great, but I think this is probably the more important piece of news right now.
Oh yes, again, and I think sentimentally very, very positive. And China had to do something about this because I think a lot of smelting capacities were getting shut down, and with new capacities probably not allowed, you're probably talking about the government very, very serious in probably at least ensuring that the supply that is probably coming through gets restricted over that 3 to 5 year time horizon. Secondly, I think the fall in prices that we've probably witnessed, there might be some amount of floor to that, at least from a short-term perspective. So clearly, I think I think the Chinese government being very, very proactive, if this is the news that is out in the open and in the truth, and clearly I think the Indian sector, steel sector particularly, I think should have a particular sentimental rub-off effect. And as Sandeep was mentioning, I think the banks having exposure to steel companies, I think they should have some amount of respite, but that might be short-term. So I think one really needs to understand the implications from a medium to long-term perspective on how these cuts can basically help. 150 million tons, in my opinion, again, I think it's quite reasonable reasonable considering the capacity that China has got. So clearly, I think sentimentally positive, but how much can it help earnings probably for a lot of these companies over the next few quarters? I really doubt, Neeraj, at this point of time.
But I will reserve a comment on that. First, let me just quickly get in Mitesh's view on this piece of information and how that rubs off technically on stocks. Mitesh, would you play for a long for Tata Steel, JSW Steel, some of these steel companies that have been badgered, which rallied today for a long, for more upside tomorrow? And would you buy tomorrow into the steel companies?
I think, see, they are clearly oversold. I think we'll take the case individually as to when and how, these stocks are getting past their important intraday levels. I think Vedanta Limited was something which I covered. It's already done that. JSW Steel is close to doing that. It needs to get past levels of 1,030, 35 to give some kind of a minor breakout, which might happen tomorrow. Tata is still slightly away from those levels. I think it still needs to get past levels of around 232 to about 234. And then you might see a reversal, which means that you might miss out on 2-3%. But again, catching a bottom exactly is a very difficult task. But once we start getting signals that the direction of the indicators as well as the price breakout happens above moving averages, I think when all these technical factors collide and the price is coming out from oversold levels, I think then it becomes a very strong trade and a very a trade which will have a very, very favorable risk-reward equation.
Indeed, and that's getting reflected in the candlestick charts. Also, look at those two big blocks being made just towards the close of trade when this news flash came out on all of the commodity names. In fact, the rub-off is happening on aluminium and other majors as well. So Vedanta, Hindalco, those stocks have also seen a big bump up towards the last few minutes of trade. Sandeep Sabharwal and Mayuresh Joshi, this question comes for you, 30 seconds, and if you could just get answers before we wrap up this segment. Would you buy into steel tomorrow morning, Sandeep Sabharwal?
No, I wouldn't buy into steel tomorrow morning. But I think from a trading perspective, I think steel still has some way to go.
Okay. Mayuresh, what about you? Would this be structural enough? I know you're saying the impact would be seen 3-4 quarters down the line, but would you believe that this is a fundamental structural change that can pull the sector higher?
Not really, as I mentioned earlier, not at this point of time, and I would agree. I think sentimentally from a trading perspective, you might see long positions or stocks probably moving in the positive direction. But clearly, I think structurally it's going to still take time for dynamics to probably change for the steel industry in a structural manner.
Yes, indeed. Gentlemen, all of you, thank you so much for joining in and giving us that perspective. That's an exhaustive coverage on the latest piece of news on steel, and you can see it on the screen. Of course, covering that in detail in the evening and tomorrow morning as well. Remember, Wokhart and a few others are under pressure, but more about that on the other side of this break. We'll actually talk about the globe and the currency as well on the other side of this very quick break. Stay tuned.